Welcome to ONV
Two
Talks.
millennials surviving.
This is O or
V.
Ono.
Just we.
Just we.
So I just read this news this morning. It was probably rolled out in March, but I read the news this morning about what they've done in Russia. Have you read about it?
No, do you wanna tell us?
So essentially, they've rolled out these health guidelines now, where a medical professional asks a woman what her preference is in terms of having kids, and if a woman says she's not interested or even alludes to the fact, then the medical practitioner will refer the woman to a psychotherapist. And this is done so a woman can have a more positive attitude towards having children. Now, on the crux of it, it's okay. But where this is problematic
Is it?
is yes, the general sense of just having a positive attitude towards it, fine, sure. But where the problem is this is just attributed to women,
Yeah.
not to men. So even if men say that, like, there is no rule over there where it says like they're required to go to psychotherapists and change their attitude towards having kids.
Because ultimately it's our body, but anyone else can take the decision other than us, ourselves.
Pretty much. And that struck me not as wrong, but it definitely wrong. But it really concerns me because we've come to a point where we think, oh, it's 2026, like it's time where we get progressive, but then oddly we find that we're becoming more and more aggressive.
We are, I think, as a society getting more aggressive, and I have been noticing that not just this year, maybe particularly this year, but the last few couple of years especially, I feel I have.
Yep, which is a whole different topic on its own, right? But then today, what we'll focus on is just in general society's expectations on women having kids and why subliminally or very overtly it seems like the biggest achievement or the only achievement for a woman to.
Yeah, and then that the choice is clear that yes, of course, you have to have kids.
When did you first ever notice that? Because obviously it's not something we've just heard now and we're like in shock. The messaging we've seen ever since we've been brought to the world, we've grown up, even though we come from progressive families.
Yeah.
The conditioning is so deep rooted. So when did you first start noticing that?
I feel like I don't think I noticed it. I just grew up thinking, yes, I have to have kids. As simple as that. I just thought that, yes, I love kids is a different story. And I just, in fact, I know I was really young. I was like 12, 13. I used to be like, I don't really care about getting married, but I just want babies. I just thought that's it. Like, yes, you have to have a kid. Or you.
Which is fine because at that point you said, because you really do like kids.
Yeah,
So there's the difference between
absolutely.
like wanting it and then being told in many ways that you need to have it. That's it.
Yeah. But so for me, like couple of things, right? Like one, I just thought this is natural. Like you have to have kids because everyone around me, I didn't know anyone who chose not to have kids. If that's how. And the second thing is that I also come from a progressive family, so I was actually never told that you have to have kids, which is surprising. Of course, at least up until when I was growing up. From my early 20s to mid 20s, I started hearing it. I remember my uncle, we were just talking about something, and he's like, hey, by the way, you're still staying single. And I'm like, yep. And he's like, oh, I think you should freeze your eggs. And that maybe was the first time it hit. And I'm like, do I even want kids? And why have we just jumped to that?
But one of the things that I did notice in like familial functions, like events where we'd obviously meet your extended families as well, and when they'd meet each other, I'd always notice like for the older cousins or older aunts, whoever,
Right.
the immediate question always was, also, you finish your studies, when are you going to have, or when are you going to get married? And if they are unmarried, and if they've just gotten married, then it's like, well, you need to have kids. If you don't have kids, then they start planning their whole life out. Like, oh, you're already whatever age they are,
Yeah.
and you need to have them now because only then your parents can come and support. Otherwise, if you don't have a kid now, then when you have a second kid.
Yes.
So I start noticing those interactions, but I've never, or my personal experience, I don't remember seeing that same interaction having had with men or with the boys.
Right.
ever.
I
For
think
them, it's always been about the career. Like, how is your job going? Like, how are things at home? And never, or when are you planning to have kids? That's always directed to the women.
always. See, now, see, this is a little bit of a separate topic, right? But like when I was growing up, because I was the oldest, I never really heard in terms of kids. But I still remember very early on. I was 18, very ambitious at the time, looking for colleges to go, and I had a relative who had a son who was a similar age, and he's like, "Oh, it doesn't matter what you're doing, because you're a girl. Ultimately, you'll have to get married and take care of your husband." That I mean, I just at that time, it was just anger that took over me. Maybe it shouldn't have.
It's hard not to be
but
angry about it, right? Because then it's like,
yeah,
hang on, where did that
it's
just come from?
for 18-year-old full of hopes.
Yep.
Are you like,
All the dreams we
and
had,
that's
like-
what society does, whether it's with kids getting married or whatever it is. It boxes you, and you're basically brainwashed almost to believe that if that's not your choice, it's wrong.
Yeah, and for some reason, if a person decides not if a female decides not to have kids and they are expected to defend their position, be defensive, and be told all the time that you're wrong or you're broken. I've had that comment come at me when they ask, "Oh, like what about kids?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, one, why is it okay for you to just ask that? It's pretty private.
that yes.
But okay, two, because you've asked, I'm an open book. I'm saying I don't see myself having kids. And
Yeah.
the immediate reaction was, oh, then you must be broken.
Oh, someone actually said that to you. How do I not know this?
The person was really, he's alive, I think. So the person is really old. But it's interesting that is their immediate stance.
Oh my
to think that if
God.
a woman doesn't want to have kids, they're broken. Mind you, I was only 23 at that point, but sure, women's of childbearing age as soon as they
my
turn
God.
15, I guess.
Yeah.
I only say that because with the
15?
American the census that came out as well, where they were sitting and crying about teenage pregnancy having reduced.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good thing, but
There are laws in place so that it doesn't.
well,
So
it's interesting that amongst many expectations on women that society has, which is again different topic. Stay tuned. Plugins. Why having children, even more so now, has become such a huge topic of debate,
100%.
such a huge expectation that just
100%.
goes on, where it does not matter what else you've achieved in your life.
If you don't have or want a kid.
Yeah, that's what your worth is reduced
Yes,
to, whether or not.
Again, I want to come here and acknowledge it's not even just one. Like, of course, choice is very important, but the way society questions you may really want a kid, but you can't have one for whatever reasons it is, and then that itself it can break you, right?
100%.
And really make you question your worth.
100%. Exactly. Which is also so problematic in their own sense, which is why we see even women who want kids, really putting the pressure on themselves and to
have it by a certain
somehow-
age or whatever
yeah,
it is.
because there's also this innate, I guess, thought that many people have in terms of having their own offspring.
It's mostly men wanting to, carry on their bloodline or lineage or whatever the hell that is.
Which is again interesting because I read another article that the lineage is actually carried forward by women, not men, because of the mitochondrial DNA. Look it up. Not the same as chromosomes. I only say this because I've had this argument once already, and someone brought up chromosomes for some
That's
reason.
a gender. That's the male decides gender.
Exactly.
And still somehow it comes to the female, but different topic altogether.
Yeah. So it's I've even seen that with a whole different side of things, right? Like, let's say in our parents' generation, like they would have achieved so many things. Like, you can be a freaking CEO of a company, which I think is pretty impressive. Not talking about whether it's a man or woman. It is just impressive regardless of who it is.
Absolutely.
But then the question is still, you don't hear someone going to a man and saying, "Oh, but you don't have kids yet. Like, how have you achieved anything in life?" But then for a woman, the biggest achievement still is, or the biggest worth still is, whether or not they have kids, how many kids they have, and if they have grandkids at some point.
And no, but it just starts from having the pressure of having kids, but that's just the start. Like, then that whole pressure of motherhood is again a whole different ballgame. We're not going to get there. We're not mothers. Neither of us see ourselves having kids, but what we really care about I guess want to stress on is just the importance of choice. You are free to make whatever choice you want. Whether you want a kid, absolutely go for it. And if you don't, know that it's okay and you're not broken, you're not selfish because I've been told that.
You're selfish regardless of what choice you make, but unfairly, you're only deemed selfish if you decide not to have kids. And I'm sitting and thinking, but selfish to who? Like, what exactly is this offspring expected to achieve? Like, are they? It's not like we see everyone's kid sitting and curing cancer. Are we curing cancer? No, we're
No.
sitting over here in a freaking lawn at Shakespeare Park, yapping. I think it's safe to say we haven't achieved much yet to be contributing to society other than pay taxes and putting money in some millionaires' pockets. That's basically the reality. So, yes, I know at the end of the day, women are the only ones who can birth kids. But then why does that make it okay for everyone else to then make the decision that they then have to have kids just because you have the capability to have kids?
Yeah, because ultimately we were treated as second class citizens, as our bodies are not just, it's not our decision. There's someone else who can make that, and it's just carrying forward. And of course, that whole birth rate decline crisis that is coming, but that's only because women actually can now make choices. We're free to make choices, we're free to achieve things, and we're able to decide what's right for us
That's what
and what's
scares
not.
them, though.
Yes, because you have the power and you have the independence to do it,
Yeah, because
to
we're
make the
getting
decisions.
more and more financially independent.
Yes.
And then we have a stance to say no.
Yeah.
At least, of course, as dichotomy in society always exists, there's always going to be a group of society that unfortunately, when women are not financially independent, they do not have that safe space to actually get up and leave when they find themselves in situations that they don't want to be in.
Yeah. And I mean, if you see our parents' generation, most, I won't say all, but a lot of, at least that generation, had kids much earlier, right? They didn't know what they're doing. They just, again, I know when I talk to my mom, she's like, all I knew that yes, it's just a natural thing to do. I had to have kids.
It's kind of funny because that was when women were already getting empowered, women were already working.
Yeah,
And there was a shift because yes, there was some women getting married early still, but there was still a far cry from back when we had like our grandmothers were getting married
100%.
when they were 14 or 15 years old. Because that was just what society was then. And then our parents, the age was pushed further. Like my mom herself got married when she was 28, and she was a career-driven woman at that point. So once you start looking at all of that, like I'm actually sitting and wondering, did our parents have more of a choice than we do right now? Just because of the way the world is started going, especially with the birth rate that they keep bringing on and on about. I get it. I get birth rate declining can be scary, but that is not the way to go.
But yes, and that doesn't mean that you go force people to have kids.
But still doesn't take away the question: why is the expectation just on women? You can physically birth babies, yes, but why is that question and the expectation always just posed on women? And why is that worth only on women?
Because they're also expected to raise, and then your child's character comes on to the woman.
That's entire motherhood.
Always.
But again, I've had an aunt even say this, like she is the vice presidential role in one of the top companies around the world. And she's very feisty. So she's not afraid to stand up. She still went along the modules of society, especially brown society, where you get married at a certain age and
have a kid.
And she was considered a rebel for her time because she did not still follow the standard template.
Also because she was successful, which apparently we shouldn't be.
Stay at home after having a kid. So she became a vice president right after or right before she had given birth to her child. And when she came back to work because she had a meeting, the first question that her peers had asked, male peers, "Oh, you're coming for this meeting. Who's taking care of your baby?"
See, that's the thing.
And she just turned around and she was like, "Who's taking care of your baby? You have 3 kids. Who's taking care of your kids?" And he's like, "Oh, my wife." I'm like, "Yeah. So, I have a husband." So,
and the husband's the other parent. And that happens not just, like here she's at an influential position where like powerful men, of course, they can't even, a lot of them at that age especially, couldn't even dream of a woman, I guess, being there, right? Right after birth. I'm just, another story. This is a friend of mine. She was just telling me how she decided to, before she had a second child, go for a holiday or whatever with her friend. And her father's asking, so who's going to take care of the first child? And she's like, the other parent. And that's the thing. It just comes down to every
Yeah. And this is not about
part of
victimization.
society. It's not.
Exactly. We're literally talking about, because it's easy to just say society. At the end of the day, society has a face. Like we've heard this from the likes of any aunt or like a random uncle, or subliminally, even maybe from our parent at weird ways that we don't even realize. And we're not saying that everyone's doing it intentionally. A lot of it is probably coming from conditioning. And that takes us to like, where does this conditioning come from? And just because it was a certain way back in the hunter-gatherer days,
it all stems down to patriarchy, obviously, right? To like, is it okay by the man? Like, is it okay? Like, if I have any conversations and someone's like, I'm like, I don't think we're planning to have kids. At least not at this stage. Don't. The first question is like, oh, is your husband okay with it? One, he's not going through it. I'm the one who's gonna like sit through those 9 months, and then my whole life, my brain will be altered, my body will change. It's all on me. But my husband has it. Why?
That's also a case with many medical industry. Then the medical industry as well, if called an industry, but with like in some countries, maybe all. I have to look that up. But if a woman wants to get her tubes tied or anything like that, they, especially in India, like you need your husband's permission
Yes.
if you want to abort or if you want to get your tubes tied. In other countries, they can basically just say no. What if your partner wants to have kids?
That's the thing. The sad reality is we're still living in a man's world.
100%.
And but again, I guess one of the reasons we're talking about this is because there are so many women I know, we know, who maybe feel shit for not wanting kids or
not being able to have kids.
Yes, and
it shouldn't, the pressure just shouldn't be there. If you want to have kids and not able to have kids, it should not be a huge topic of conversation to be able to adopt. The amount of money spent, the amount of hormonal imbalance a woman has to go through when an when an
IVF.
IVF, yeah. IVR. IVF. For IVF. And yes, sometimes it's successful. A lot of the times, maybe it's successful. At least the stories I've heard. But I've also heard of stories where it has not been successful, and in some cases where they've been successful at a huge cost for the woman. She doesn't look the way she does anymore. Her body is taking a huge
the
toll.
same. It's so it is painful, and I know someone who recently tried IVF, lost a baby like 5 months into pregnancy. Again, these are the things, and then somehow still it is like the woman's fault, which is so sad.
Because that's what the worth has come down to. And I think it makes it really hard as well, because even though we're sitting and going, oh, yep, like it's our choice, forget the society,
Maybe
even at this point.
Even if, say, you want a child and it's not your choice because, you can't have it for whatever reason it is. But don't make yourself feel that you're not enough.
The worth especially comes to them when you've been brought up with that subliminal messaging, right? Because we are able to sit here and say, it's our choice. That's what I was getting to. But then you have, unfortunately, we'll always have pockets of population where they are conditioned to a point where they think it's fine. Again, whether or not it's right, not the topic of conversation today. But so when they feel in their own selves, like so deep within themselves that this is what they are born for, and then they're not able to have kids, not only are they doing that pressure on themselves, they constantly hear it from the rest of them as well. And then, so the general worth that they may have had, they're already putting that on themselves. They don't even have an option at this and see if anything else they achieve would even be considered. The fact that she was not able to bear children is always going to be the topic.
That's what the sticker is on. Yeah.
Which really
and
sucks.
Again, I've heard so many times, right? Like, oh yeah, this one, for example, couldn't have a kid. How do you know it's her? It's always the blame is also on the woman. Like, I'm not saying they blame men. it's you can't have, you
Do
can't
your due
have.
diligence first. It's not stop making it a him or her problem first. It's
Yeah.
you're a couple. Like it's a joint issue. It's funny you say that because I'm watching the show Good Doctor, and that one of the characters president of hospital, but in the first season he is the chief of surgery. He is planning to, well, he and his wife are planning to have kids, and they were doing their usual like checks, and then she basically they said the doctors had come and said that yeah, it's just not happening. So when they were discussing, and she says, "Oh, is this even going to be meant for us?" And then the first thing, chief of freaking surgery, the first thing he says, he's like, "Oh, like let's get you checked. I'm sure like there must be something, like something must be up." And she's also a doctor, mind you. So she turns around and she's like, "Why do you immediately assume it's me? It
Yeah.
could also be you." But the way they show it is what I really appreciated, because they show his reaction to that, and he starts blaming her immediately, because he
Of
starts saying,
course.
well, I'm just saying you're older now. Like you wanted us to wait for us to have kids, so now you're older now. So it's understandably like your eggs would have dropped. Like we are doctors, we're professionals. You should know that. And she just goes. She was like, "It's not fair. Like how are you blaming me for this?
Yeah.
And we haven't even had a test done." So they go get their test done, and the first thing the test comes out is them saying your egg count's fine. We have to do a sperm count now. And he's like, "What? So you're saying I could be the problem?" And he's like, yeah, I mean, it's a human body at the end of the day. You're aging at the end of the day. But then the way she reacts to it is completely different,
Of
because she just
course.
holds his arm and says, "We'll get
It's
through it.
okay.
It's okay. We'll
Yeah.
figure something out." And of course, like the storyline is not him getting vindictive. He just is in shock and he's like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God." But
You
then
don't
it's
think like
interesting,
that.
right? Like the
Yes.
fact that the reaction also
Yeah.
is completely different.
Absolutely. And then the other thing is that it's not a competition. And again, I'm not blaming all men. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, it's just, I mean, whether you're having a child, you're not having a child, it is your decision, and it's a very private, personal thing. I don't think it's okay for people to come and ask you, even, are you having a child, or how many children do you want? A school friend of mine was telling me how, like, someone in her group who's our age, I'm 30, um, she's the one, she now has two kids, and she's like talking to all these friends who don't have kids or not married, then, hey, what are you doing with your life? You really need to go have kids, or like get married. When are you going to have a child? That's the problem. We can't normalize this. We can talk about this for as long as we want, but whatever your decision is, it's okay. If you can't have children, and if you do want, our heart goes out to you, you're not broken, there's nothing wrong with you, it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to be mad no matter what. Have you seen all those videos where a woman talks about, hey, like child free life? Woohoo.
And there's so much hate that she gets for
Oh,
it.
so much. And then there's, you'll always see this one person who's like, why do you find the need to sit and glorify child free life? I'm like, well, flip that around. Why do you find the need to
That's it.
glorify life of children?
100%.
It's because it's your life.
And
You
I
want to
feel,
share your joy, which is great. You just want to share
but
your joy.
absolutely, 100%.
So we're talking about, unfortunately, the way society progresses right now is we still hold on to a whole lot of traditions or thought process or the general way of doing things from back in the day, whatever the back in the day is, could be centuries ago. um, so a woman was never, you can fight all you want, but this is the truth, a woman was hardly ever sent off for education, sent off for working, and there was never just manual labor. So one can't come and say there was only manual labor available. We're also talking the likes of being an author, being a painter, and whatnot. Like the likes of Jane Austen, for
Yeah.
example. Like she needed to use a pseudonym, and it's only because she had supportive brothers that she was even able to publish her books. But so back then, we're talking about a case where even more so, where women were definitely not financially independent. They were designed to be dependent on people. It's either your father
Father or your
or,
partner.
yeah. And a woman who is not married off at that age, like however young, because that was the case back in the day, were considered burdens to her parents
Yeah.
because she was not contributing to the household, which in itself is very sick, but whatever, keeping personal things aside. Having kids at that point, I think, was an insurance for them.
Yeah.
So if you have a kid, because it was always accepted for men to philander about with other women, other whoever, It was just okay. It was considered normal. It was considered okay. In fact, at that point, it's a woman's problem because she's not able to keep him happy. So that's all okay. And the only way the woman could ensure that she was not going to lose any part of an estate or any part of a livelihood was by keeping the man in the marriage with a child, because then the child is his responsibility, especially if it's a son. And somewhere I feel like that's trickled down to a point where it does not matter where you are. You just have to keep producing babies to continue a lineage. Now, why that lineage is important, I don't know. Like, what? How does it matter? Like, after
It
we
doesn't.
pass away, like, are we going to sit and know about
What's
children and
happening?
grandchildren and great grandchildren and great 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 grandchildren to sit and remember us? Also, have we done anything for them to sit and remember us? Like, we sit and talk about Newton. Am I sitting and talking about my great 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 grandfather? No. So, all in all, just to come and say, I really do think we need to get with the times. Not hold on to certain systems that were set in place back then as a form of security for different people at that point.
And not question yourself. Whatever decision you've made, just trust yourself. And don't one important thing is that ultimately, like I've seen so many women, they don't want kids, but they pressurize not leave the society. I'm not even gonna go that far by their partners, they're their husbands, right? That is very problematic.
So, Anu, this is a topic we can keep yapping about. What would you want, an especially young girl hearing this? What do you want her to take away from this?
A few things. One is whatever decision you make, it's your body, your choice. Be informed. Biological clock, I think that's one thing we didn't really touch on. Yes, it is a thing, but and there are other options. There's so many things, egg freezing, consult your gynecologist, but just don't let anyone make you feel that your decision is not okay. And if you want to have kids, absolutely. And if you don't, that's absolutely okay as well. Now, on a lighter note, before ending, what's something funny you've heard for people to try and convince you to have kids? Or, I can think of something which someone recently told me.
Who's going to take care of you when you're older?
That's just dumb. Like, it's not my retirement plan.
They apparently think all the kids.
And how do you know my child will be capable enough to take care of me? And why would I be incapable enough or not being able to take care of myself?
Right now? We can't afford things ourselves.
Exactly.
It's going to get better for our kids.
There's more pressure on me to make sure my child's okay. Now I have to work double as hard as I already am working. But anyway, something I was told, and it's not. They're like, so this is someone's like, you know what? I know you're going to be a great mom. I know that as well. And that doesn't mean I think I would be great if I decided to scuba dive. Am I doing that? No. So anyway, on that note, we will see you on the next podcast.